In the corner of a sun-soaked living room, a child not much taller than a coffee table sits, seemingly lost in the chatter of the grown-ups. The adults are buzzing with excitement, phones capturing every moment like paparazzi on a celebrity's tail. "Come on, sing that song again," one calls out, and for a fleeting second, the child hesitates. Their heart longs for the freedom of the outdoors, the warmth of the earth under bare feet, and the joy of unbridled laughter. Yet they take a deep breath and begin to perform. The child's voice, sweet and innocent, fills the room, drawing the adult's attention like moths to a flame. But behind that delicate mask of joy, an unsettling thought creeps in. They realize that it's only in these moments of performance that they truly feel seen. When I entertain, they notice me, they muse. But when I stop, it's like I vanish. This is the complicated psychology of a star kid, not the pampered offspring of celebrities, but a child who learns from a young age that their worth hinges on their ability to perform to the audience's expectations. Hey everyone, welcome to Psychologist Jeep, the quiet corner of the internet for the kids who grew up performing. Today, we're peeling back the glittered mask of the star child, the one who smiled through exhaustion, achieved through fear, and confused validation for affection. Before we dive in, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who once tried too hard to shine, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. It's fascinating to see how far our quiet little circle of recovering good kids reaches. It's a bittersweet adaptation to life, one many of us carry well into adulthood. The little performers thrive on applause and validation, believing they need to mold themselves to fit others' desires. It goes beyond just needing a pat on the back. It's a deeper psychological wiring. Grew up in homes where love came with strings attached, then you've learned to perform, cozying up to the idea that you only receive affection when you're in showtime mode. Love turns into a kind of oxygen. And silence, well, that feels just like suffocation. But hold on, what happens when the clapping stops? That's when the facade begins to crack. Developmental psychology reveals how deeply kids internalize these survival strategies. If high fives and warm hugs only come after they wow the crowd singing or bringing home A's, then it's no wonder performances become a necessity. The tragic belief sets in: if I'm not amazing, I'm not loved. Spoiler alert, this belief lingers, creeping into teenage years and further into jobs and even relationships. You might find yourself living as the star student, the life of the party, or the true blue people pleaser, always delivering a show-stopping performance. Yet even amidst the cheers, there can be an aching loneliness, an undercurrent of sadness. It's as if you're trapped in a costume, desperate for someone to see the real you, the one waiting just behind the mask, hidden from the spotlight that once felt so vibrant. Let's take a step outside this stage for a moment. Picture nature's perfect cycle. A tree doesn't bloom ceaselessly, does it? It grows, it rests, it sheds, it whispers in the stillness. But our star kid is conditioned to bloom year-round, their lives governed by an unyielding spring. If they ever dare to pause, to show a hint of sadness or confusion, they confronted with disapproval. Gentle nudges like, "Don't be so moody," signal they should switch on that dependable sunshine smile, because who wants clouds hanging around? Those seemingly harmless comments can a heavy load for little hearts. While adults might not realize the impact, for a child, such phrases carve deep grooves in their understanding of love and acceptance. They get the message loud and clear. It's all about being on all the time, and so the performance continues, an endless loop of striving to be what others want, when all they really desire is simply being seen. Hide your shadows, show only your light. This advice echoes in the minds of those raised in the limelight, prompting a split between the glittering persona and the quieter, hidden self. The performing self dazzles with charisma, charm, and adaptability, while the hidden self wrestles with exhaustion, sadness, and fears that lurk in the shadows. It's like living in a spotlight with an unseen weight clinging to your back. and they serve up emotional dilemmas that would have Freud scratching his head. Delving into psychology, Carl Jung introduced a concept of the persona, a mask we adopt in society. For some star kids, however, that mask evolves into a gilded cage, shimmering and protective, but restrictive nonetheless. It shields them from judgment but captures their true essence in the process. While they might dazzle the crowd, the inner turmoil can be buried deep, sometimes making authenticity feel as alien as a trip to Mars. Fast forward a few years, and these children sprout into impressively capable adults, often rising to prominence while charming the socks off everyone they meet. They become leaders, influences, or artists who can read a room better than a fortune teller. But here's the twist. Underneath all that sparkle, they may wrestle with a nagging sense of hollowness. Performing has become second nature, while their true selves remain secluded and unexplored. Picture the star kid believing their worth hinges on their ability to shine. Imagine the weight of that belief, the fear that if they ever dim their light, everyone would vanish. That's the invisible backpack they haul around everywhere. Psychologists call it conditional regard, and it's an all too familiar burden. Love must be earned, typically through success and applause. The underlying message: fail, and you risk losing not just the crowd's cheers, but love as well. Here's where it gets real. Many of us can relate, star kids or not. How often has our value seemed tethered to what we do or achieve, rather than our inherent worth? We hustle at work, smile through hardship, and project success while we're secretly struggling. The act of performing can indeed feel like a survival tactic, but the ongoing high-wire act can wear down even the most resilient souls. It's a tragic reality that leads to an endless cycle of performance, robbing the inner child of peace. The heart craves love, not for talents showcased, but simply for existing, shadows and all. Consider that moment when a child, weary from the dance of performance, finally masters the courage to utter, "I don't feel like singing today." What emerges next? Empowerment, acceptance, or perhaps bewilderment is far more transcendent than any amount of applause. Take a moment to picture the collective sigh of relief as the pressure dissipates and a genuine connection begins to form. It's transformative, because in a world convinced that it's all about the dazzle, let's not forget, it's okay to embrace our shadows. They're here to remind us that we're more than our performances. We're the beautiful, chaotic symphony of our true selves, flaws, fears, and all. When we show compassion, saying things like, "That's okay, we love you anyway," that's when the healing begins. Yet, if disappointment is the response, a belief takes root: "I must always perform, never let up." It's a curious paradox for the star kid. They appear to radiate with joy, yet inwardly, they're wrestling with their demons. They spread happiness but often can't quite capture it for themselves. They're cherished for their strength, yet secretly, they wish for a cozy corner to just be weak, without judgment. This naturally brings forth a deeper philosophical inquiry. What does it really mean to be seen? Is it the applause we receive for our achievements, or the acceptance we feel for simply being who we are? Trees need winter to grow, yet we often deny children their stormy patches, expecting them to be nothing but rays of sunshine. If every sky has its share of storms, why must some kids feel like they're only allowed to bask in the sun? The more we dissect this, the clearer it gets. This is more than abstract thinking. It's a cultural commentary. Many cultures place a substantial pedestal beneath performance, accomplishment, and that shiny medal of excellence. From the get-go, kids are congratulated for grades, awards, and special talents. But when do they ever receive a pat on the back just for being themselves, for showing genuine vulnerability, or for simply just being there in a quiet way? We teach them to compete like Olympic athletes, yet forget to show them the grace in resting. Celebrating who they truly are gets overshadowed by dazzling displays of talent. Fast forward years later, that bright-eyed kid morphs into an adult, and they're caught between two stark realities. Though the shining star in professional life, yet yearn for love and acceptance when the spotlight dims. This tug-of-war plays at the very heart of the star kid tale, engaging in endless performances for the world, but still yearning for quiet acceptance off stage. That inner turmoil continues as they delve into adulthood, carrying patterns from those formative years louder than a rock concert. The star kid who once took the stage may evolve into the co-worker who can't resist saying yes to every request. Perhaps they'd morph into the partner who always entertains, or the friend who downplays their own struggles to keep everyone laughing. Piece by piece, they might ask themselves, who am I when I'm not performing? Do I even exist beyond the applause? It might sound overly dramatic, but believe me, for many, that's a genuine contemplation, one that's quietly valid. This complexity links to a concept in psychology, the false self, famously introduced by psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott. This false self acts like a shield, allowing us to morph and bend to meet societal expectations, thereby ensuring our safety and social acceptance. But wait, there's a catch. The true self tumbles back into the shadows, dimming its light. For the star kid, this false self doesn't just become a costume worn on special occasions. It morphs into their entire identity. And here's where things spiral into confusion. Society loves this false self. The world greets performers with open arms, favoring those who can light up a room, flash a smile, or present something sensational. Promotions and friendships flow smoothly towards those who bring dynamic energy or a flair for the dramatic. The irony, the true self often finds itself tucked away, creating a yearning to be known. Those standing ovations drown out the small voice, asking, "What about me?" Inside the glittering world of achievements, there's a heavy price that we often overlook. The applause and accolades can feel intoxicating, but the inner voice asks the unsettling question, what if I stop? Will they still love me? This anxiety creates a profound emptiness for many high achievers, especially when they finally take a breather. Instead of relief, they find themselves facing a silence that can feel deafening and scary, revealing just how unseen they really are. Imagine a candle flickering away, brightening the room with its warm glow. Lovely, right? But if it burns continuously without respite, it will inevitably burn out. Unfortunately, many star kids, raised in an environment where shining bright is the norm, fear dimming their light. They internalize a terrifying belief: if they fade, they will be forgotten. This fast-paced life, devoid of rest or genuine authenticity, leads to a drained spirit and a heart in need of restoration. Take a moment to consider human motivation. It's all about balance. Renowned psychologist Edward Deci outlines 3 crucial needs that shape our happiness: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Star kids often excel, dazzling everyone with their talents. Yet, what about that autonomy, the freedom to be themselves, and relatedness, which is feeling genuinely loved? Too often, these needs remain unmet, leaving even the most brilliant accomplishments feeling eerily empty. As these star kids mature, they sometimes unconsciously pass down their need for brilliance to their children. Shine bright, show them what you've got, they say, believing it's a gift. However, the unvoiced message can all too easily translate to, "I love you more when you dazzle me." This dangerous cycle of conditional love layers up quietly, establishing an unspoken competition for approval that may go on for generations. The silver lining, cycles can absolutely be broken. The first step is all about awareness, taking a moment to check in with yourself. Ask important questions. Am I living as my true self or merely performing? If I'm feeling low, do I still force a grin? When life feels overwhelming, do I reach for achievements instead of embracing vulnerability? It's not easy, but these self-inquiries pave the road to a more authentic life. Then comes courage, the bravery to ditch the mask. It's daunting to wonder if people will stick around when you're not in show-off mode. What if you told a friend, "Today's not a good day for me," or gave a firm no when you're bone-tired? These tiny, honest gestures become monumental steps toward healing for the star kid, allowing them to shed some of that heavy pressure to perform. Philosophically speaking, isn't life one huge paradox? We hustle to be extraordinary, yet deep down, what we truly long for is unconditional love, especially during ordinary moments when we have nothing to give but our authentic selves. The realization hits. The star kid doesn't have to shine all day, every day. Acceptance of their true self becomes the real treasure. So, let's celebrate the little moments along with the big ones. Healing often emerges when we embrace our rightful place in the night sky, vast, serene, and bursting with potential. Picture this. Stars only twinkle because of the dark canvas behind them. Without that shadowy backdrop, their brilliance would fade into oblivion. Similarly, our existence isn't solely defined by our brightest triumphs, but also by our hidden struggles. To ignore those shadows is to overlook a part of our very humanity. Consider the tale of a musician who pushed through years of endless touring, only to crash from sheer fatigue. When asked about their relentless drive, they confessed a fear of being forgotten if they took a breath. That artist anxiety resonates deeply with many of us. We often feel like we must constantly perform, whether at work, in personal relationships, or online, lest we fade into obscurity. Yet, here's the kicker. We're loved not for our dazzling displays, but for our sheer humanity. Real healing for the star kid happens through those small, intimate moments, saying no without remorse, resting without that nagging guilt, and sharing an unembellished truth. It's about allowing oneself to be loved in all of life's imperfections. This isn't an easy journey, as old patterns scream that stopping the show means losing everyone. However, with the support of understanding folks, a star kid starts to realize that true connection isn't extinguished when the spotlight dims. Now let's sprinkle in a dash of brain science here. Neuroscience suggests our brains are programmed for connection. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, isn't just released during applause and excitement, it's also present in those gentle moments of vulnerability, quiet intimacy, and stillness shared with another. Thus, the love we truly yearn for isn't in the roar of the audience, but in the soft, knowing gaze of someone who perceives us at our core. If you've ever felt like that child in the living room, craving a bit of attention, you're certainly in good company. Many carry that weight. But remember, it isn't a life sentence. You can step off that stage even briefly and discover that the genuine ones will still be there, cheering you on silently. If you're someone who loves a star kid, know this. Your finest gift isn't loud applause or accolades, it's your presence. Cherish those quiet moments with them. Look at them where they're not dazzling, when they're weary, and still affirm, I see you. It's enough. In the grand scheme, the psychology of the star kid extends beyond childhood. It's a reflection of collective human experience. It embodies our universal desire for unconditional love and acceptance, not for our performances, but for the silence we bear and the authenticity we offer. At the end of the day, the most profound performance isn't about dazzling the crowd with our bravado. It takes a different kind of courage, daring to drop the act and simply be real. So let's celebrate that. Embrace the quirks, the lows, and the moments of vulnerability. Because here lies the true measure of our worth, the shimmering glow of simply being ourselves.